Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. This is actually our first episode of the If You List You Last podcast. I'm guessing by the name of it, you can probably figure out this is designed for real estate agents. Although I would tell you mortgage people should jump on here also because, well, how do you help your real estate agents do more business? So it's totally geared towards real estate. And yes, we're going to talk a lot about listings, but we will also talk about buyers and other systems and strategies that I think are important in the real estate business. So we do this every week. We do record it live. So if you want to attend the live recording, where you can answer questions, you can go to podcastwithbob.live and register. Otherwise, you'll be able to take and visit our ifyoulistyouLast.com page and listen to the recording of it. Fair enough? So let me give you a little structure real quick on how we're going to do this. The first 3 to 5 minutes, I'm going to just do some market update things that happened the prior week, usually economically or financially that impact the real estate business that I think are important that you know about. Then we'll do about 25 minutes worth of content on a variety of topics, yes, geared heavily around listings. And then the last 10 minutes I've left for Q&A from the people who attend live. So to my knowledge, I don't know of anybody else who does a podcast where they record it live and let people ask them questions, but I always love living on the wire, right? Where people get to ask me questions. I have no idea what they're going to ask and be able to answer it. So that's the format that we're going to follow every single week. We do record it on Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And then it takes us a couple days for us to drop it on the podcast page and YouTube and things like that. But our whole goal is to take and work with real estate agents to understand the massive changes that are taking place in today's environment. So obviously, from an economic standpoint, the number one issue in the real estate business is interest rates. Because if interest rates would lower, I think you'd see more inventory free up. And the more inventory we had, we'd bring this more into a balanced market. It also impacts affordability. I just did an analysis couple days ago, and on a $400,000 house at 3 or 3.5%, I don't remember what I used, the payment would have been, the P&I would have been $1,764. At 8.5%, which is what rates were last week, it was $3,067. So that's an issue for people, right? And so I think as real estate agents, we need to understand that topic. Now, one of the things I hear from real estate agents all the time is like, hey, dude, I don't want to be a lender. I don't want to know anything about that. I want to stay in my lane. And what I'm here to talk about today's topic is about how you need to change the perspective of what you deliver as a real estate agent. So last week, let me just give you a quick update. We had great results. Mortgage-backed securities went up precipitously, meaning they went up about 150 basis points, which means interest rates dropped down about 0.5 to 0.75%. How long that lasts, I have no idea. My opinion, I don't think you'll see interest rates go anywhere in a big movement in the next 3 to 6 months. That's an opinion. I do follow charts and things of that nature and pay attention to that. But at the end of the day, you need to understand that as a real estate agent, that if interest rates aren't going up and affordability is an issue, how do you deal with that as a real estate agent? And so to get by and say, hey, listen, it's no longer acceptable to just say, no, I don't do that. I have a lender that will do that for you. I don't think is acceptable. And I actually have a study here from Zillow that said 56% of home buyers rated or ranked understanding the costs associated with the mortgage is among the 3 most difficult financial issues. Now, what's most important is that 55% of all successful buyers turn to their agents or brokers for education regarding home financing. Well, what does that mean to you? Well, it's pretty simple. The days of saying, here, I don't really get involved in that, go talk to my lender. You just need to understand your client's not looking for that answer from you. They're looking for you to have some kind of understanding. The second part of that is, why in the world would you ever cede your expertise to a lender? Where I go, well, I don't really know about the lending side. I work with Joe and he really knows his stuff. In today's environment, you need to be the recognized expert. And I say today's environment. The reason for that, folks, is very simple. I've always built my business this way, but at the end of the day, that lawsuit that happened last week and the judgment that came out very clearly demonstrates to you that you better be able to explain to a consumer exactly what value you bring. Now, about 30 minutes before we started doing this today, I watched a Steve Jobs video, and I'm going to post it in our Facebook page, Real Estate Asset Advisors. And I want you to watch it because what he said was that the way that they develop software and hardware was they looked at the consumer experience first and then figured out how to build the technology. Real estate agents have to do the same thing. Let me give you an example. Let me pull this up. There was an article last week in the Wall Street Journal. And here's what they said: as powerful lobbies go, few have more clout than the realtors, but the cartel faces a major legal challenge. We've been identified as a cartel. What do we associate cartels with? Drug dealers, murder. And the Wall Street Journal, not some rag, pretty well-respected newspaper, called us a cartel. And so I've made the contention for the last 6 years that it didn't matter what happened in that lawsuit. If we won, we still lose, because we lose in the court of public opinion. And what I will tell you is when people that are hiring you to sell their house start suing you for the method that you did it, you need to recognize you have an issue. We can agree or disagree with what that ruling was. It doesn't matter. It's what the consumer thinks. And I think Steve Jobs said it perfectly. They don't design hardware and software for what they think is good. They look at the customer experience and then they design it from there. If I was to ask you about your business, well, how have you designed your business? What does it look like? What value do you bring to the client? I got news for you guys. Opening a door and showing a house is not value. That's a job. Anybody can do it. And if you think that a job can't be replaced like that, it can. So if you remember a few years ago, Amazon, and I don't know if Amazon still does this with packages or not, but they allowed the consumer to give them the right, the access to their home so they could deliver their packages so that the porch pirates couldn't catch. In theory, that was a good idea. So a real estate company came along, I don't remember the name of it, and said, hey, let's do the same thing. We can replace real estate agents with technology. And they allowed that to happen. And within a month, somebody had broken into this woman's house and she was attacked. End of story. That company is gone. That theory is gone. So CNN had an article. One of my agents sent this to me yesterday. And let me just read it to you here. It said, using a travel agent to buy a plane ticket or a stockbroker to trade equities seems like a relic of the past. And yet every day, people across America hire a real estate agent to help them sell a home. It's one of the few industries that's been able to largely avoid the disruption that's helped consumers cut costs in the internet age. And they go on to say that, hey, the real reason for that, it's the power of NAR, the largest professional organization in America and a significant lobbying group for the real estate industry. But the verdict handed down in Missouri found that NAR and two brokerage firms conspired to control commissions. This is what the consumer's hearing. We conspired to do that. Here's my rebuttal to that. Using a travel agent or using a stockbroker. Are stockbrokers still around? I have one. So did they go away? The answer is no. And the reason that real estate agents will never go away is one word. And so if we can sum up what's important in a real estate agent, is it that we answer our phone at 10 o'clock at night, or we'll take you out to show you homes anytime you want? Is that really what our value proposition is? It's not. The reason we get paid well to do what we do is because we absorb the liability from a home seller. The minute they sign the listing agreement, we take on a big burden of the liability. And we need to ensure that the transaction happens in a way that's legal and lawful, and that both buyer and seller are disclosing the things that they need to that could impact the decision. For example, of a buyer, right? If you said, hey, the roof needs to be replaced, and a seller didn't disclose that, that's going to be an issue after it closes. What we do is we facilitate these transactions to ensure that the process is followed in a legal manner and that we remove the liability. Now, if we screw up, does it mean that the home seller doesn't get sued? Of course they will. But what they do is they come after the real estate agent because we have E&O insurance, and they know that the E&O insurance companies will settle. If we were to take and remove real estate agents, just like a FSBO, how many FSBOs, when you go to visit them, actually has a property disclosure prepared for the buyer? And in all the years I've been doing this, 32 years, all the FSBOs I've ever visited, not one has ever had that available. The reality is 99% of them didn't even know that they needed it. Well, all it takes is not disclosing something in a property that would affect the buyer's decision, and now a lawsuit happened. And as long as there's real estate agents, we can manage that process to make sure that everybody's compliant, that we follow the laws, that we make sure that people are disclosing, and then we can go back and negotiate those processes. Now, you may go, well, an attorney could do that. And you're right, they could. Will an attorney go out and show them a house? Does an attorney know what to look for? Does an attorney know how to negotiate a contract when, repairs aren't up to snuff? And the truth is, guys, an attorney will never work for the small amount of money that we get paid. I know to the consumer, they look at the money that we get paid and go, let's say it's a $500,000 house. Well, they just got paid $15,000. In their mind, they're going, wow, let's say they make $60,000 a year. They go, wow, this agent just made as much money in one transaction as I do in working 3 months of the year. That breeds envy and jealousy and spite. And now what happened with this ruling is it's all over the media, and the media is facilitating this idea that somehow we've taken advantage of people. So as an agent, what I would highly recommend to you is that you need to be very introspective in your real estate business and determine exactly what value you bring to the consumer, both when you're working on a listing or on a buyer, because the market's changing. For the last 6 years, I've had a solution for this, and next week's show, I'm going to cover what that solution is and how we don't have to worry about what that ruling is, because we've been disclosing buyer and seller commissions for the last 5 years. At the end of the day, we created a solution when we knew that we had a problem. The number one problem, in my opinion, that real estate agents have is that the consumer does not look at us very favorably. So I have a survey from Gallup, and let me flip over to that one. And it was a survey based on the honesty and ethics of a real estate agent. So 4% of the population thinks we have very high ethics and honesty. 20% thinks we have high honesty and ethics. 55% think it's average. 15% believe it's low. And 4% believe it's very low. And 2% had no opinion. What that means, folks, is that the consumer, 75% of the consumers do not believe we're honest and ethical. And if you actually dig into that, and I do have the source for it, it was a Gallup poll, the number one reason they felt that was because of commissions. The consumer is conflicted how we as a real estate agent could list the property and double-end a deal and get both sides of that and be able to say, yes, I was honest and fair with both parties. We can argue. You can give me all the arguments for, you can give me all the arguments against. It doesn't matter. When 75% of the population thinks that you at best have average honesty and ethics, we have an issue. When tens of thousands of sellers are suing you for how you listed their property, you have an issue. The question is, what are you going to do about that issue? What are you going to do to up your game? Because in my opinion, if you're listening to this now, you really have two choices. Either up your game and get better, substantially better, or leave the business. Those, in my opinion. Now, you can tread water for a year or two and see if things will just kind of stay the same, or you can up your game. I always vote for up your game. And if you take Steve Jobs' approach to that and say, hey, as a consumer, what value do I bring to them? And if you can't answer that, you better go back and do some detailed introspection. I created a coaching company called the Real Estate Asset Advisors for that purpose, because let's be honest, folks, I'm aware that people don't see the value in what we do. A lot of the training now is like, after this lawsuit, hey, go and write a list of all the work that you do and how important that work is and how hard you work. In my opinion, people don't care how hard you work. They just look at it and go, wow, look at the payday they got for the little bit that they did. And none of them understand the liability that we take on. When you sign the listing agreement, you absorb all that seller's liability. When you sign a buyer broker agreement, you're absorbing all that liability. Something goes wrong a year after it closes, guess who's getting sued? Do you know that the number one source of lawsuits in the United States are real estate related? And so more people sue over real estate than anything else. And when we start to work with whether a buyer or a seller, we absorb that liability. That's why real estate agents will never go away. Now, with everything that's happening, we better do a better job of explaining our value to the consumer. I want you to maybe make notes and think about that word value. What value do you bring? So what I teach is called value branding. Everybody in the real estate world, really everybody in the marketing world, is always about personal branding. Tell them how wonderful you are. And the truth is, they don't care about you. Nobody does. I don't tell you that people are rude or anything like that. It's always the what's in it for me. And if you can't explain that to people, they don't care about you. And the truth is, the more you brand yourself like you're something all that, the more resentful people are. I believe another reason that we don't have a great reputation in real estate are all these reality TV shows where they see all these people making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 commissions, driving Maseratis, hanging out at parties with pretty girls and drinking, and that's all they do. And then I see some of those shows and go, oh my God, these people are giving real estate agents such a bad name, right? Women having catty fights about who's sleeping with who. Folks, the consumer's watching this, and I think it severely impacts that trust and favorability that people have in real estate. Why does a real estate agent selling a $50 million house get paid what they get paid? Because they're taking on a lot more liability. And the person buying a $50 million house or selling a $50 million house has more money to hire lawyers. So you better make sure that your dots are covered, right? And so at the end of the day, the reason we get paid what we get paid is liability. Everything else becomes a value proposition. Why work with you instead of somebody else, right? So what is value branding? So I'm going to read you what we do as a company. Value branding is not a marketing strategy. It's a way of doing business that compels is a big word, an agent to focus on the benefits and solutions that they can create for their clients that other agents simply can't or won't provide. The key to attracting clients, not selling clients, not finding clients, attracting clients and referrals is to provide massive value and create compelling benefits and outcomes. It's all about the outcome for the consumer, not about how wonderful you are. When I sell your property, do you care how wonderful I am, or do you want the highest net price, the most amount of money in your pocket, fast, without a bunch of headaches? If I can help you accomplish that, I'll be worth more money, won't I? On the buyer's side, what is it that you do that compels somebody to work with you? And so I'm going to give you an idea of what we do. If I could help a buyer, let's say they're buying a $400,000 house, the way this lawsuit is coming down, it sounds like, although I think there'll be other resolutions to it, right now the buyer would have to write you a check. $400,000 house, 3%, $12,000. Folks, do you know anybody on this planet that is going to write you a check for $12,000 for what you do? I don't. I could be pretty convincing, and I don't think I can convince somebody to write me a check so that I could open doors and write a contract for them. But that's not the value I bring to the relationship. Here's what I'm able to take and do. I'd be able to take and help them structure a plan that would have the house paid off in 7 to 10 years. On a $400,000 house at 8.5% interest, I could have it paid off in 10 years and 1 month. I could save them $432,000 in payments and interest. And instead of paying that money to the bank, we would help them invest it. We'd be a resource. We don't do the investing for them. We would get them to somebody who can help them and turn that into just short of $1 million in cash in 30 years. So think of it this way. If I was your financial advisor and said, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, if you will buy my $12,000 package, investment package, at the end of 30 years, I'm going to hand you, call it $1 million, and I will have your house paid off in the 10th year. So you still have all the equity in the house plus $1 million in cash. The cost of this investment program is $12,000. How many of you guys would invest that $12,000 now if I help them do that? So for the studio audience, throw it in the chat box for me. How many of you guys would hire me for $12,000 to be able to take and help you do that? 12 could turn into $1 million plus a free and clear house. That's value branding. And so at the end of the day, even if they did have to write a check for $12,000, you have to be able to answer that question. Why would they hire you instead of anybody else? That's what value branding is. And if you don't have a brand like that and you don't understand the value in that transaction, and that all has to do with money. So I hear a lot of real estate agents going, whoa, not my space. I don't need to know that. Yes, you do, because they're looking to you for guidance. You also have to be able to answer a very simple question, folks. Currently, there's 1.5 million realtors in the United States. I do believe that number will go down massively in the next, call it, year. I just read an article or study by an investment advisory group that their projection is that we'll have somewhere between 400 and 600,000 realtors left a year from now based on this court decision. I don't know if that'll happen or not, to be honest with you, but it doesn't matter. I still have to compete with that 400 to 600,000 agents, don't I? And if you don't have something to compete with, you can't give people a good reason to hire you. They simply won't. And that's going to affect your cash flow, because what we do is we focus on cash flow for real estate agents. It's a pretty simple process. If you have inconsistent cash flow, can we agree your life kind of sucks? But what we do is we help agents focus on cash flow by focusing on listings, because listings are where the money's at. Again, let's just do the math real quick. Takes you about 40 hours at best to work with a buyer. Takes you about 10 to work with a listing. That means I can get 4 paychecks for the same amount of time I've got to spend with a buyer. It's nothing against the buyer. It simply says that I need to focus on listings, because that's where the consistency in my cash flow comes from. Again, the question will be, why do I hire you to list my property? I'm going to hire you to list, sell, and negotiate my property. Why you? And if you don't have a good value proposition, you're out the door. Next podcast, I'm going to talk about what we use to answer that, what our value proposition is for listings, because that is where the money's at. And we've got to understand that we've got to focus on cash flow. Now, the way that we do this is we help position an agent to become compelling. And we do that through education, tools, and training. And then we focus on being able to summarize that into a 30-second statement, 30-second or less. If I could help you buy a house, $400,000 house, have it paid off in 10 years, help you accumulate $1 million in cash, and you have your house free and clear at the end of 30 years, would you want to explore why we should work together? That's a value statement. I can get your house sold for the highest amount of money guaranteed in only 14 days, and I can eliminate 90%, 98% of the hassles and headaches involved with it at half the cost of a traditional sale. See, I can say that in 30 seconds or less. 15 seconds is better than 30. The question for you to determine is, what's the value of your business? What is it that you're going to do, and how are you going to do that? Notice I use the word compelled a lot. If you can't compel people to hire you, you won't get hired. If you can't compel them to hire you, they certainly won't refer you. So what would be compelling for somebody to refer them to me? What value do I bring to their family member, their friend, or their coworker, whatever it was? What if they even didn't buy a house from me, but I could show them how to get it paid off in 10 years and fund that and all that? I add it to my database of people. When they sell their house, who are they going to come to? And so we have to have a longer-term strategic plan in place for our business that answers a very simple question. Why you instead of me? So the way that I explain it, I'll give you an exercise that you can do. I call it a stadium pitch. And it's not my phrase. If you read Chet Holmes, what is it? Whatever the sales machine, right, is where I got that. It's a very simple question. I take and fill up a football stadium with people, 50,000, 100,000, whatever they hold. And I say, here's the cool part. I've loaded this up with people that are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to tell them why they should work with you instead of another agent. You got 30 seconds. That's it. And it'll set you up for life with all the business you could ever handle. And one more caveat. I've also invited 9 other agents to do the same thing. They all get 30 seconds. And what I'm going to instruct the crowd is, at any point that they're not interested in what you're saying, they can just get up and walk out. Talk about pressure, right? So now you got to take and keep them occupied. Then you got to compete with 9 other people. What are you going to say? So your job would be, go and figure that out. Then you know. So here's what I would say. Now, again, the likelihood I'm going to fill up a stadium for you, not very good, right? But how many of you guys have been at like a networking group event and they go, hey, you got 60 seconds to get up and do your pitch. What do you say? So here's mine. Hey, there are 3 mistakes people who own real estate make that prevents them from having their home paid off in 7 to 10 years. And most importantly, from accumulating $1 million in cash from that home so that it can be used to fund your retirement. Now, I want you to also understand that does not include the equity in your property. And we do that with money that every other agent in this stadium would have you give to the bank instead of putting it to work for your family. Now, if you'd like to see what I could do for you, just schedule a 15-minute discovery call at www.savewithbob.com. That's not a real website, by the way. But if that's what I was doing, whether it was in a stadium full of people or a networking event or an elevator, somebody says, well, what do you do for a living? Do I help people get rich? What is somebody going to say? What? How do you do that? And then I'm going to tell them. That's how that would work. And so you've got to figure that out in your business. Now, the good news is I've created a whole company based around that to help coach and train and guide people on how to do that. So your assignment for the week is to do the stadium pitch and figure it out. You've got to figure that out for buyers, sellers, and investors. Fair enough? So with that, I now have 9 minutes and 45 seconds. I'll open it up for questions. Right? I want to try and stay very close to that promise. So we've got some people in the audience. What kind of questions do you guys have? You can punch it in, or I guess if you unmute, people won't be able to hear it. Now, for those of you guys that are here, this is not an unusual process. Guys, what would that do for your business, though, when you start saying that? See, the reason I created a certification, the Certified Real Estate Asset Advisor, why would I create that? Like, why do we need something like that? Well, at the end of the day, when let's say you're at a barbecue and people go, what do you do for a living? You go, I'm a real estate agent. Do you see them like run away and they're like out of here, right? Oh, I got to take a phone call. Oh, I got to go fill this up. Because they associate that with something negative. If I said to them, well, I'm an asset advisor. What kind of asset? Real estate. What do you do with it? Well, I help people that own it pay it off much quicker, saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars in payments and interest, And then we help them put that to work to fund their retirement. So at the end of 30 years, their house has been paid off. So it's worth whatever it's worth. And they got $1 million in the bank. That's what I do. If you said that to somebody on an elevator, at a barbecue, at a party, what would they now say to you? How do you do that? Yeah, too much detail to go through here at the barbecue. If you want to jump on a Zoom call, just, go to brainstormwithbob.com and schedule like 15 minutes. I can walk you through it. If you were doing that, can we agree you'd have more business? And so next week, I'm going to walk through our whole dust formula on listings and how we do that on the listing side. But today, I really wanted you to focus on what value you're bringing, because last week, we're under attack now, folks. The media, Facebook, social media is just loaded with stuff about that settlement and how real estate agents have been screwing people for decades. That's not the case. Let's be honest, guys. Does somebody have to list with a real estate agent? They don't, do they? They could do a for sale by owner. Are the discount real estate companies around, like assist to sell and help you sell and all that? Well, if we were conspiring to set commissions, well, how would those companies exist? And let's be honest, most agents don't get a 6% commission because they can't justify to the consumer why they're worth that money, and they don't even understand it. It's the liability that forces us to be paid more money. Why would we take on more liability for less money? And because we don't understand that, we're not able to explain it. That's why you see the commission compression go down. 37% of all listings in Southern California now are 1.5% or less to the buyer's agent. So if we were conspiring to keep commissions at a high level, well, how is all that happening? But it doesn't matter what the truth is. It's what you can convince a jury. And they did a good job of convincing them, mostly because people watch these reality shows and go, oh my gosh, look at that $200,000 commission. You have to now be able to take and separate yourself and tell people why you're different. And so to say, hey, I'm a real estate agent. What sounds better? I'm a real estate agent or I'm an asset advisor specializing in real estate? Which sounds better? And then they go, well, what do you guys do? Well, if you're selling your house, we want to maximize the equity in that, because when you go to buy another house, we want to use that additional equity and money to fund $1 million retirement plan for you and use it to get your house paid off in anywhere from 3 to 10 years. What listing agent says that? And so my challenge to everybody, the reason I decided to start doing a podcast is I believe this message has to get out to the real estate community. Whether or not people agree with it or not, or they want to listen to it, that's going to be up to them. But what I can tell you is when you change your language that you use to the consumer, you're going to make a lot more money. It's really that simple. Any questions for you guys out in the audience? If you do have them, great. If you don't, that's okay. All right, so it doesn't look like it. So with that, then I'm going to just sign off. Let me just see who's there. I'm going to just sign off for you because you don't have questions. And just let you know, the next podcast, which will be a week from today, I am going to go through that whole listing strategy because, well, after all, the name of the podcast is If You List, You Last. But there are bigger issues than just listings. But what I coach is only focus on listings. And so I'm going to talk to you about the structure that I put in place about 6 years ago now, based on really 4 things. Number one was the cash offers that came into the marketplace, the number of highly funded discount companies like Purple and Rex and Homey. So where did they go, right? If we were conspiring to do commissions, how did they come in and attract billions of dollars from hedge funds and then not make it? And then 3, these legal issues. And then 4th, and most importantly for me at the time, was how do I teach my son, who was 22 years old at the time, to go in and take a listing without people going, hey, kid, how old are you? Or how many homes have you sold? So I created a system and strategy to put that in place so that even if you're a buyer's agent for the last 20 years and somebody says, well, how many listings did you sell? It's about the process we use to market and deliver the results. And so that'll be what we're going to cover on the next If You List, You Last podcast. So with that, folks, I'm going to sign off. And thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for listening, downloading, watching it on YouTube, wherever you've seen it. And I'm going to challenge everybody to up your game, because it's not the same real estate business it was 1 week ago. Everything changed. And now it's all going to be about the value that you bring to the consumer. And if you don't, you'll wash out of the real estate business, in my humble opinion. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And we'll talk to you next week.